Well, it's very late morning over here, Friday the 10th of May. And I felt obliged to connect because I haven't connected in quite a while. I missed the show last Sunday. I was very, let's say, well below optimal in my opinion, being able to deliver and do a decent show. And I will confess up front that I am dealing with very serious headwinds when I look at the astrology. This is just personal stuff. Everyone's built in different ways. It just happens the way the transits are right now. It's very heavy headwinds. Very. You have to keep going. I don't know if any of you have had much time sailing. I used to do a lot of sailing when I was young. Who's that? Is that Anthony? I forgot my glasses for the third time today. I've been up since about 6, and I'm trying to keep life together, but this is a serious struggle today. Anyway, greetings. Thank you for stopping in. And I apologize. I really can't read the chat. So anyway, I'm facing a lot of headwinds, but as usual, when you understand what's happening, you don't have to take it so personally. If I wasn't a homemade, do-it-yourself amateur astrologer, I would be freaking out right now, trying to figure out and understand why things are so difficult in whatever aspect, money, the world, life, politics, everything you can think of. So anyway, we got to keep going. Regarding the sailing, I used to sail a lot when I was a kid, and there's an expression, headwinds. So if you're going from A to B and you run into very serious headwinds, you end up resorting to what's called a very hard tack, where you have to basically zigzag your way forward. It's a slow process because the sailboats work on pressure into the sail, transferred down the mast into the boat itself. And if the wind is blowing at a certain angle, it can propel you forward. So you have to have the angle of the wind onto the sail. And the only way you can get that is by going sideways let's say the wind is coming from up there to here. For me to go from here to there, I have to go like this. And it's very hard work and it's very slow process, but you get there. That's called tacking. And in my case, it's very hard tacking, but we're doing it. And it's happening, it's working because I understand the weather. Anyway, we keep going. I don't know if you've noticed, but when I look at the charts, because, I haven't connected with anybody for almost 2 weeks now. A lot has happened. We've had much more compression of the planets, all that stuff piled up in Aries, all the stuff piled up in Taurus, bits in Pisces, and now the moon is all the way over in middle of Gemini. And just a couple days ago, the moon was actually there in Taurus, and it was a very serious compression. So we had, I think it was Venus, moon, sun, Uranus, and Jupiter all piled up there across all 30 degrees. And that is a lot. It doesn't matter what sign you are. Okay, whether you're a Piscean or a Gemini or who knows, a Leo, or whatever it is, that huge cluster of Taurus energy is sitting somewhere in your chart affecting you personally. So I like to look at things as though I have my own satellite and I can go all over the world and see anything and do anything. And then what do you do with that? I'm actually in a human being body, so I have to come down to Earth and function here in a 3-dimensional system, which is sometimes very frustrating, but we do it. Anyway, here's a couple I've got a list of little things that I need to get out of my system, off my chest, so to speak. I'm sitting up by the park, and it's a kind of a pretty day outside. There's a massive rain cloud over there. There's dazzling sunshine over there. It's about 90 degrees outside, so it's pretty mild for here. And the wind is too strong for my little phone and microphone. This is my refill coffee because I've already been up since very early and had my first round of coffee. And I've already done a lot of chores with landscaping and everything. So I gave myself a break. And that's what we're doing right now. Please be aware, everybody, all watchers, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, we have six coronal mass ejections happening right now. They started last night and they're finishing up today, and they will arrive at Earth probably on Friday night and all through the weekend up to Monday and Tuesday. Basically, huge solar flares. Sometimes you can get solar flares without the coronal mass ejection. The solar flare can be like a spark. But a coronal mass ejection is when massive amounts of plasma spew out into the solar system. And in this particular case, all 6 of these CMEs, coronal mass ejections, came from one massive sunspot. It's the biggest sunspot that my source has seen in 20 years of doing this astronomy stuff. So he's putting out alerts. It's not going to be a Carrington event. He thinks that's very unlikely, but still, having 6 CMEs back to back, it could impact us. Some people might not feel anything. Some places, depending on where they impact, the internets might go out, transformers blow up. It affects the whole of planet Earth some way, somehow or another. It affects the magnetic and geomagnetic guidance. It affects weather. It affects humans psychologically, emotionally, physiologically. Classic examples would be increased anxiety and confusion in your brain and your body. It goes on and on and on. And lots of people end up suffering, but they don't know why they're suffering. I like to blame it on the planets. I blame almost everything on the planets. In this particular case, it's the sun. So there you go. I just wanted to get that out there. Brace yourselves, okay? Next, I saw yet another copy of the list of names of all the people. Hold on, let me see if I can read the names here of everybody. I wish I could read it. I've lost. Oh, stay hydrated. Thank you. Hello, Anthony. Hello, Necessary. I can't read that one. I wish I could read better. Anyway, so I have the list. I'm working on my little phone right now, and I love my little phone. It's a very powerful device, and I collect a lot of information here in conjunction with my tablet and my computer, and I try to collate everything into a simple, digestible form. Today I'm working on the phone, so I can't show you, and I don't have a way to use the tablet to show you, but I've seen from about 3 different sources this list of names in the United States Congress of the people who are receiving the kickbacks from the massive multi-billion-dollar funding of the Ukraine people war, Zelensky thing going on in Eastern Europe. And pretty much every name on the list is a Democrat or a senator, mostly in Congress. And there's a few Republican hardcores, part of the Uniparty, so that's not surprising. And I only saw about the first 18 names, but it goes up to about 30 names. And they're all receiving kickbacks in the tens of millions. $10 million is nothing out of 50 billion. It's nothing. It's just like pocket change. And It's part of the money laundering system that's been going on for a long time, but that system is now being exposed. Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius. We, the people, are starting to get very enraged and confused and shocked that our freedoms are being stolen. Our assets, our wealth is being stolen. Pluto's going to retrograde further into Capricorn, where the global elites are going to become even more desperate than ever before, mainly because their game is exposed. A lot of people around the world, because of the internet and these phones and things like that, are waking up in ways that has never happened before on a global scale, because this is the first time in human history that the Pluto and Aquarius cycle is being felt on a worldwide basis. Every society, every country is aware that there's something very profound and disruptive and frightening and liberating and scary right now. Every country is feeling it. In some countries where they have totalitarian regimes, the leaders are terrified because they're realizing that we, the people, are waking up and rising up and saying enough is enough is enough. Classic example would be China. Anyway, so that is happening right now. Neptune is at 29 degrees, the degrees of desperation. So you add these 2 degrees together. Once Pluto retrogrades into Capricorn, it's going to be at the critical degree, 29 to 29 and a half degrees for a month or two, right around the American elections, okay? At the same time, Neptune in Pisces, 29 and a half degrees. These are indicators of major chaos and crisis, like off the charts, immeasurable, where desperate people do desperate things. And a lot of people will discover that they might feel as though they've lost control of their lives, like there's some big there's some big invisible overriding powerful force that seems to control everything in a way that we feel as evil. Well, guess what? That's because that's what it is. It's out there, and there are human beings who don't have any soul, who have been, let's say, either indoctrinated or infused and deliberately chosen to take on these very evil behavior patterns in order to feel happy. They don't know how to be happy unless they are committing extreme evil. They're empty. These people are empty. They're hollow. All they crave is power and money and control to fill that big fat hole. And of course, it can't be filled. It is a black hole. So that's happening all across the world right now. In China, I think especially, it's very obvious because there are hundreds of millions of people in China who live a life of extreme poverty, and it's getting worse. I think there's going to be a mass die-off, personally. So anyway, I'm just trying to grind through my list here to get it out of my system, get it off my chest. So I mentioned the list of names. I'm not going to say the names here, but if you really wanted to, you could do your own research and find them. It's pretty freaking scary stuff when you understand how the system actually works. Here in the United States, we had I don't know if you know or even care, but we had a very serious situation recently regarding Mike Johnson and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House. They have a tiny majority, and there's a total of about 8 real, genuine, conservative constitutionalists inside American Congress. All the other Republicans are basically uniparty or sitting on the fence. They're just there to collect their paycheck and get a few kickbacks. So anyway, it got very ugly when Marjorie Taylor Greene decided to push the button to get Mike Johnson ejected. Well, guess what? Trump intervened. He decided to mediate between Marjorie and Mike. And the end result is that Marjorie backed down. A vote was placed in Congress, but the vote failed. And we all knew it would fail. And in a way, that's sort of okay, because it allows Marjorie Taylor Greene to get her point across about how corrupt and decrepit our government has become. And so that message has been sent, and she can still shoot bullets. The point is that she was, I think, basically advised to calm down until 2025. Donald is expecting to be holding the office, and Donald loves Marjorie. Donald loves Mike, despite the conflicts. So that was very scary for me to watch, because if Mike Johnson had been ousted, it would be absolute chaos in Washington right now, even worse than it is already. Next thing I want to mention is this channel I watch sometime. It's called Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. And they are an older couple who've chosen to live off grid. They live in the Amish community up in Northeast America, sort of in the Pennsylvania, Ohio area. They are not Amish themselves, but they live the Amish lifestyle, and they love it. They have a log cabin that they built themselves. They have some land, and they take care of animals. They grow their own food and animals and so on. They have electricity, and they have a YouTube channel. And he is the main voice, and he has about 1.3 million subscribers. And I kind of trust him. He's a jovial, very positive fellow, and he made a decision 15, 18 years ago to get off the grid because he could foresee what's coming. Very wise fellow. So he showed something on his channel, which his channel is still there, but when I started reading it, I really thought, oh my God, that's the end of his channel. YouTube is going to shut him down. Not just block the video, but shut his whole channel down. Anyway, what he did was he wanted to have his own research and own homework about what is unfolding in terms of world history live right now, real time, and how far back are the seeds planted in time that turned into the harvest of what we're having today. And so he found this fellow, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a Scottish Freemason from the 1850s. And this Freemason guy, he basically made a declaration after getting inside and becoming a Freemason and getting involved in private enterprise in Western Europe and in the United States. Very intelligent fellow, and obviously enough to get inside the Freemasons and learn what's really going on. But he did his own notes and own summary, which he kept private until he made it public after he was dead. And inside his notes, to me, it was, I don't know, well, it was very disturbing, but then again, no surprises. What he was doing was outlining the foreseeable future in the way and how it is all planned out by the global elites. He described how the United States Federal Reserve banking system would appear and manifest. He was not alive, well, not really quite alive at the time, but he predicted, and what he didn't predict, he knew that a central banking system was going to be instituted in the United States, and it was going to be endorsed by the federal government and used as the most powerful tool to manipulate the global economy. Bingo. Guess what? That's what happened. Next, the bankers and the global elites would conspire with each other to grow their wealth and power and money and control through the global banking system as headed up by the United States Federal Reserve. So that's what happened. 1913, institution of the U.S. Federal Reserve. 1 year later, bingo, World War I. War is very, very big business for the bankers. They love it. They love the wars. So this Scottish guy predicted the banking system and First World War. And the First World War was designed to upend certain religious and cultural establishments all over Western Europe. From there, the early colonial days of Western Europe and how they went all over America, South America, Africa, India, Australia, New Zealand, and so on, those early colonial days would transform into a much more concentrated power center based in Western Europe, specifically the Brussels, Belgium region that we know today. Then this Scottish Mason guy described the second stage of grabbing more power, more control, and more money would be to instigate radical up and down economic conditions over a period of 10, 20 years in order to prime the world for the Second World War. And the Second World War was basically designed again by the bankers and the global elites across the world. Of course, by this time, the whole world was now connected with transportation and communications. So it became easier this time around to create a Second World War that was more encompassing of the whole of planet Earth. And this was designed to, again, upend cultural established hierarchies that would be crushed, obliterated, and turned into subservient, docile slaves to this new evolving financial system, which is based on debt, more debt, printing and printing and printing more and more and more currency. Basically, eternal inflation over decades. And that inflation is actually a very powerful form of theft, extraction of wealth from we the people. And that worked beautifully. World War II was a spectacular success for these global elites. Next, in World War II, he also wrote how in order to inflame the population and enrage society to get to the point of extreme violence, insane violence, they would create a scapegoat. And that turned out to be the Nazis versus the Jews type of situation. This video will probably get shut down because I just said those words. But anyway, we'll see. I'm just kind of recounting history. And of course, that created massive outrage, which would actually act and become the seeds of more dissent decades later. And in his notes, in the Scottish guy's notes, he outlined World War III, which would be a pickup point after World War II consequences had settled down and enough power, money, and control had been milked out of the global community back into the elites' banking and political systems at the very, very top. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful plan. It's working very well for them at the expense of us. A lot of dead bodies along the way. And he also wrote how World War III would be instigated, this time between Judaism and Islamic cultures, where things would become so inflamed with a possible trigger point in the Middle East. Kaboom, look what we've got happening today. And so that's exactly what's happening right now, but we're at the very early stages. So I was reading these notes and this letter, this document, alongside with Doug and Stacy while they were showing it. And honestly, it's, in some ways, it's not a shock at all, but it's also very, very disturbing. It makes me feel like some of these global elites have access to very powerful astrology knowledge that we the people don't. I'm doing the best that I can, but they seem to have, I don't know, I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole other video. So I wanted to share that story. I mentioned the thing about the astrology and how we're dealing with a lot of compression of the planets right now. The moon is split off and is now in Gemini. But over that period of about 2 or 3 days, well, about almost 5 days, 4 or 5 days, while the moon was moving through Aries and Taurus, I had just so much tension inside of me because I could just feel the energy of war building up all across the world. It's like a compression. Desperate people do desperate things. The primary energy of desperation is happening in the global financial system. The side effect of the chaos is felt by the human beings, like the Palestinians right now, or the Chinese people right now. There's massive amounts of collateral damage. In other words, hundreds of millions of dead bodies as a consequence of these natural evolutionary stages in human behavior, where you have a hierarchy, a handful of people at the very top who have their agenda, which is contradictory to the agenda that I want to live. And that's why the United States, especially, I hate to say this, white American conservative, common sense constitutionalists like myself, we are enemy number one. We are the enemy number one because we cherish our freedom and our liberty. And that, there's about 100 million of us, and we're in America. And that's the ultimate roadblock to the global elites achieving their next stage. And it's becoming a big, big problem for them because they never imagined that it would become such an obstacle. A lot of patriotic American types roll over when things get ugly because they just don't want war. They want freedom, privacy. They want their small family homes. They want their family farms. They want to have safe, wholesome, loving communities, healthy food, healthy activities. They don't need government. America, as we know it, as we knew it, 1776 and all that, the whole idea was to strip out global elites and parasitic dictators. And that's what they did. But it was on the understanding, beware, 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 because we're still going to have a very, very slim federal government, which is going to take care of business that has to be taken care of. So we're going to allow for that, but we have to remember that by creating this new way of operating where the power rests with the people, there are going to be some elites who are not happy about that, and they're going to take their position of power, the very, very early days of Washington, and the seed is already planted for the corruption and the decay to that which we see today. So here's where we are in history, and that correlates exactly with one Pluto cycle, 250 years. Okay, so that's where we are today. The difference today is that back then, 1776, that was a small body of people waking up on a global scale, knowing that they're creating something that is highly controversial, rebellious, and contradictory to the global elites. But they did it anyway. And they gave themselves the permission to have free speech and to bear arms in order to protect their free speech and to be prepared to take down their elected politicians if necessary, if those folks aren't doing their job. So that's where we are today. That's a huge problem. So the global elites are now amassing, they are coalescing into one, like a multipolar coalescence. Imagine like a coalition of gangs. Okay, I'm going to name like China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and multiple other oligarchies, dictatorships, where they have decided we cannot accept this whole idea of freedom. We need complete power, mastery, and control, and all the money of our populations. And it's getting really difficult to do that because this place called America has had a lot of power recently, and they're trying to, impose these concepts of liberty and freedom. That's not acceptable. And they have not yet destroyed us. They have not been able to destroy us. They're trying to do it right now, where the United States is heavily infected by adversaries here inside America. And the most dangerous elements to America right now are right here in Washington, and all the mayors and attorneys general across all 50 states. The enemy is within. And that's where we are right now. And the enemy within is now poised. It's heavily funded, very, very heavily funded to take over America. And they are very close. They feel that they're getting very, very close. But here's the problem in war. Once, let's pretend I'm the good guy and there's some bad people out there. Once the bad people get close enough to the point where they can execute their war and the damage and go for the kill shot, you get to the point where you can see the whites of their eyes. And there's an old expression, you don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes. You don't want to waste your ammo just going, stop that, go away, go away, go away. So that's what's happening right now. And it's not just here in the United States, it's all over the world, because the countries and places that I mentioned cover a vast amount of the global population who have to live in misery under these totalitarian dictatorships. And so those folks are coalescing to try and take down America and turn America into this completely perverse communist newbie. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're going to try and try and try, but over the next 20 years, there's going to be various forms of revolution to stop that from happening. In other words, I call it the reconstitution of the Constitution. Desperate people do desperate things. So the most desperate people right now, or the most desperate person, is Mr. Ping over there in China. He is presiding over 1.4 billion people whose economy is imploding and collapsing. That's very bad for his ego. So he's going around the world trying to promote himself and, hey, come back to China. We're not that bad. We'll figure something out. He's desperate. He's absolutely desperate. No matter whatever else you might see in the press, China is heading this way fast. And the boss guy is desperate to stop that happening because it looks bad for his ego. And the only way to stop that is to go to war. He's going to lash out and use the most blunt instrument available to him, and that is violence, and that's war. That's why he's built up the military so much, even though their military is very corrupt, and even though it's large, it's way below the standard of what we have in this country. But either way, if that guy over there, Mr. Ping, decides to actually physically go to war, then it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to get really ugly. I mean, he's already at war. I mean, the United States is already heavily infected with Islamic extremists and Chinese extremists pushing sabotage everywhere on our food chains, our electrical systems, our communication systems, our transportation systems, our political systems, our educational systems, all of that stuff, our political systems, all of it is heavily, heavily infected by China. Well, the CCP. And people are starting to realize and wake up. So what do we do about it? Nobody knows yet. There's a few people, there's probably a handful of people in Washington right now who would reside on the so-called Republican side who fully understand what's going on. But how do you deal with that when you're dealing with trillions of dollars of globalized warfare in the currency exchange markets and a coalition of thugs, gangsters worldwide who want to take down America? So that one way they're going at it is through the financial system. They're creating this BRICS thing. And everybody's talking about, oh, it's the end of the US dollar. All those people are going to take down America. America's going to turn into Venezuela. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening at all, not in the way that those storytellers are telling it. If you go to Argentina and you're just traveling around trying to do business, if you're walking around with gold coins or silver coins, you might feel rich. But if you want to buy a meal or stay in a motel or rent a car or rent a donkey and a horse and a cart, or go somewhere or stay in a hotel or something, buy some gasoline, they don't want that. They don't even want their pesos. They don't mind the Argentinian pesos because it's starting to become more valuable now. They want the US dollar. They trust and take the US dollar more than gold, more than silver. What does that tell you? So there you go. Anyway, I'm going to hang up right now. I finished my coffee. It's getting really hot. And I hope to see you guys on Sunday night. Okay? I'll have my glasses by then. I'm going to sign off now. Please take care of yourself. Protect your money. Protect your privacy. And protect yourself. Consider your loved ones. Mind your own business. Please be aware of what's going on out there. And don't get sucked into it through reflex behavior. You don't have to be a victim. Okay, take care, everybody. I'm going to sign off now. How do I sign off? There's the button. Okay, bye-bye. Toodaloo.